Warning: the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are based on psychic impressions and true life events that may be potentially frightening and or disturbing to some viewers. Any of the information that is shared in this production should not replace the advice of medical professionals and is intended for general purposes only. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Lights at Midnight podcast. We are two mediums that specialize in the paranormal. Our purpose is to shed light on what goes bump in the night. That is why we call this podcast Lights at Midnight, aka Lamp. In last week's episode,
Yeah.
we decided to talk about dark spirits. So basically, what we covered were fallen angels, demons and devils,
Shadow people,
yes,
interdimensional extraterrestrial beings. So we covered everything that's would be more, you would think, into a spiritual sense, like things that actually exist in other places. And now we're going to be talking a little bit about that, but we're going to be getting into elementals, parasites, bugs, cryptids, human created spirits. We're going to have a little conversation about that. We're going to have a conversation about an energetic actions like curses, hexes, even portals and vortexes. And then I think that will cover all of our malevolent side of the duality aspect, the dualism aspect that we are bringing to you this whole month. So in the next episode, we will go to benevolent things and our experiences with that too.
Chastity, what is today's recording called?
Release the flying monkeys. Fly, fly.
My pretty.
That's how I do my witch laugh to the kids, like when I tell them stories. I'm like,
Yes.
yep. So, yep. Fly, my flying monkeys, fly. So, Emily, would you like to talk about your experiences for this week?
Sure. So I had a few, but I'm going to just say the shorter ones because this is going to be a long episode. So the first one I pretty much had a dream where I was with my family and, the TVs cut on and they did their, this is an emergency or whatever. And pretty much the TV showed that volcanoes were going off and we had to go get our stuff, pack up our stuff, and then leave and go to Mexico, which is fun, I guess. Which I have a lot of dreams where I'm packing up and running from some kind of tragedy or some crazy event. So it just is weird that this one was volcanoes. And then
I've had those too. They're scary.
I like them.
Well, the one I had, I actually was like in another country, and they were people that didn't have the same complexion as myself, and I was packing up my house, and like we had to get down off the mountain because I could see like the smoke coming up, and there was a point down at the bottom of the mountain where there was like a rinkety gas station. We all had to meet down there at a certain time to evacuate, and then like that was happening while I was, while I was sleeping. It was a dream, and then I woke up and searched the internet, and someplace out in the Pacific actually was doing that, and it was daylight there
Mhm.
when, like, because this was in the daylight. So while I was dreaming through the eyes of somebody else. Thought it was crazy, but anyways.
And then this one was an astral realm experience. And pretty much I was with my deceased aunt and we were eating breakfast together and she was just checking in how I was doing.
That's actually really cool. A lot of people wish, I think, that they could have those experiences. Even, if it's just what people consider a dream, I think it's still a very special thing when you have a past relative that comes to you. Is something really nice.
She usually comes in when like bad things are happening. So like she's the one that told me that my endo came back and that I needed the hysterectomy surgery. And then when things are going bad in relationships and whatnot, she comes in and things are kind of rough right now with my health. So she was
Yeah.
there. So
I was literally that's exactly what I thought before you even said it. I'm like, she comes in when your health's bad, doesn't she?
Mhm.
That's really, really neat. I mean, it's good to have that experience for sure.
Mhm.
Is that your conclusion for your events this week?
Yeah, did you have any you wanted to share?
I have a couple quick ones. I guess I'll start off with something kind of interesting that happened. So, I've been seeing some type of entity on my kid's bed that looks like my children sometimes. So, I'll walk by the room. I may have discussed this before. I don't know if I've done it on the podcast yet, but it's very possible. But I'll walk out of my room and out of the corner of my eye, I'll see one of my daughters sitting on the bed just out of the corner of my eye. And then I look and they'll probably like be in the living room. They're just not in their room. And it's, I'm like, okay, something's got to give here. So finally, a couple nights ago, my youngest daughter was asleep on the couch, and I knew she was. All my other children were in the living room as well. Their light was on in their bedroom. I walked by and I clearly see out of the corner of my eye my youngest daughter sitting Indian style on the bed. And basically, she had this like nasty little look on her face. And I was like, well, no, that's not my kid. And I was like, I'd had it. So I went ahead and I energetically sealed the doors and I took sage, opened the window, and did that room only for the time being until I'm cleansing the rest of my house soon. And I sealed the mirror in there energetically and the windows, everything. I just did it all. And then I made some protection candles and burned those in that room and in my sacred space, as well as in the central part of the house to try and push this thing out. Well, interestingly enough, I was watching a live with Meta Psychics, and it was M and two of the friends of M and Liv, and forgive me, I cannot remember their names, but she was doing super chats for like small readings, nothing major, just like answering any questions or pulling a couple cards. Well, I was lucky enough to be able to catch her before she had to go off live. So I did a super chat and said, I'm looking for validation about a spirit I keep seeing on my children's bed. My children see it too. It's been elusive and sneaky because it has. It really has. Because I'm not getting a whole lot of information from it. I just see it, but I know that there's something there. And it's doing that because it's in my environment, right? Well, she was thinking, she's like, I see two things. And she asked for the help of her friend, the guy friend she has, because she's like, I'm seeing a man and I'm seeing a shadow thing, but I'm not sure if the shadow's real. And she asked the guy, he's like, yeah, I see it. It's a shadow, but it's a small shadow. It's not a big shadow, which I found very interesting because we've seen the shadow on the wall and they've seen shadows in their room and stuff. But the fact that it's getting smaller, does that mean the energy work that I've been doing is pushing it out? So it was very nice to get some validation from another medium that I don't particularly have too many conversations with. Like, me and Emily constantly talk, and me and a couple other people do as well. But it's nice to have an outsider perspective on, yep, they see it too. And the guy that's here is actually helping with the shadow to keep it away from the children. And it's a grandfather figure, which is the third time I've had a confirmation about a grandfather figure of ours being in the house, and that would be V's grandfather. So that's the third or fourth psychic that has said he's around and he is helping keep this thing at bay too. So I just found that to be very interesting. And then I guess the last thing I will share is I did a prediction video back in January. Had my predictions done at the beginning of January, but I didn't get it posted till the 18th. And today I saw a YouTube video, I think it come out yesterday, stating that there was a whistleblower with the pipeline, the gas line that was blown up near Russia, saying that a whistleblower come out and said the U.S. had actually done that. So, and it was regarding like the war between Russia and Ukraine, and why that's why these things are happening, like the pipeline where they're cutting it off and all kinds of other stuff. Well, that was I believe one of my predictions. The only thing I got was there'll be a whistleblower about some secrets surrounding the Russian and Ukraine war. So that's what I interpreted it as. And it was very interesting that that happened today. So that's like number two or three so far, which is surprising because I've never really done prediction. I mean, I do them, but I've never publicly released them. Like I'll have a habit of saying like, this is going to happen. Just watch, this is going to happen. Here it goes. And then that happens. I just thought that was a really cool validation.
Yeah. I need to go look and see if any of mine have come true yet.
Yeah, and this one I didn't. I mean, sometimes I'll do that. I do look. I've looked for like the superbug I talked about
Hmm.
in February making its resurgence, and I have looked. This one though, I didn't search for it. Literally came to me, and that was his opening statement. I made a short about it. It was really neat, and it's a good idea to look.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think that's going to be it for this week's experiences. So we're just going to hop straight into the rest of our information about dark spirits and what we refer to as the abominable.
So, okay, we're going to be starting with elementals today. All right, let's crack into this episode here.
Yes. Yes, queen.
Yeah,
Yes.
queen. So, if you don't know what elementals are, elemental spirits are natural energies of a or the planet's elements. They can assume a physical or non physical form. These spirits are some of the first beings to inhabit the waking world and other realms. They come in infinite shapes and sizes, with each having their own temperament that correspond to their element. Their magic and power comes from their element and is somewhat chaotic and unpredictable. Now, depending where they live, such as different planets, realms, or dimensions, depends on the different types of elementals possible. Other places may have more than the typical five elements that the physical Earth has, which means the type of elementals here versus other places may be different.
Ether creatures.
Fuck yes. So, I also want to note that there are some spirits that fit into multiple categories, like last episode, such as some bug spirits and other ether creatures. It is very important to state that not all elementals are bad or even evil. A lot actually play an important role when it comes to protecting nature and the natural order of things. The reason it is on our list is because there are times where there is a shift in the being's energy due to various things that may impact its environment overall consciousness. When this shift occurs and the spirit switches up, it can be devastating and harmful to other sentient beings around it. Since humans are beings of Earth, we only know what's within our planet for the most part. LOL. So the elements of focus will be earth, fire, water, air, and spirit.
I love the elements. Like I've always been in love with the elements.
Mhm.
It's my jam.
With the earth element, we have gnomes, fairies, leprechauns, trolls, elves, and other earth related spirits. There are so many, like, I'm not going to list them all. So, it represents material possessions, fertility, stability, hard work, nourishment, and order. Earth spirits may be seen in the physical aspects of the earth, including forests, mountains, and other landforms. Earth spirits work with consciousness and combine earth, air, water, and fire in practical and grounded ways. Earth is closely connected to physical senses, so clairsentience, which is what I am. Capricorn, Virgo, Taurus. And then we have the fire element. When I was doing research, I didn't find many like spirit beings related to fire other than salamanders, and they can appear in like orbs and stuff that glow like fire. But so we have fire represents power, vitality, transformation, passion, strength, and drive.
So
It
fire
Yeah, go ahead.
beings, they actually feel can exist within fires here on Earth because I've actually caught some in cameras, and like you can just tell there's an energetic presence. And I think certain types of elementals exist within flames and fire itself. Now, if you look back on our TikTok page or our Instagram page, you will see that I have a post about something that I caught in a candle I made for Emily before she went to the West Virginia Penitentiary. And it actually, in like the light that was produced, now it's not fire, but it was produced from the flame itself, actually found a picture of some like an entity, and like it's so striking once you see it that there's no way your mind can actually create something that detailed among many people, because I mean everybody's seeing like the same features, and some people see a little something different, but overall, yeah, there's, I think elementals come that way. And I do have an example at the end of a kind of a mixed elemental. But anyways, I wanted to add that in about fire because that's what I know about fire. There's a lot of entities to do with it, though. Just wanted to add that real quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I agree. I think all of the elements have their own spirit within the actual
Yeah,
physical
yeah.
element, too. Yeah. It is invoked for power and action. The fire element is associated with two opposites, creation and destruction. Fire elementals also have the ability to clean and purify all low passions and all vices, helping to make a change that allows improving everything that hinders one's development. And so the signs connected to fire is Sagittarius, Leo, and Aries. And then we have Wata, or water. And we got the Udines, Nixies, Naiads, Odines, mermaids, sirens, water spirits, water nymphs, etc. It is associated with the soul and represents everything that has to do with emotion and intuition. Water is ruled by the moon and deals with healing, cleansing, emotional release, clarity, inner reflection, and forgiveness, and has to do with Scorpio, Cancer, and Pisces.
Yep. And the water is like the most clairvoyant of all things, it's said. Like, it's not clairvoyant, but most psychic thing of all.
Now, we have the air element. And so, sylphs, um, and those things, from what I can tell, they look like beings that look like paper, but in the air, but made out of air in clouds and stuff. They're kind of weird looking, but they're kind of cool at the same time. But air represents intellect, goals, ambition, fun, communication, and strategy. They can be the most mischievous in character, and they represent thought. They are directly related to inspiration, knowledge, communication, and travel. The air element may represent or present as dancing, singing, performing, and expressing oneself in artistic ways. It induces feelings of celebration. The air element induces cheerfulness, levity, laughter, amusement, and delight. It reminds us of the joy and beauty in life. The quality of air allows for a flow of art and music into our lives. They can transform weather patterns and work with air. And the signs are Libra, Gemini, Aquarius. And then for the fifth element, we have spirit, aka ether, some people call. And so all elements or elementals work closely with spirit. Ether is the bridge between physical and spiritual. It is the universal energy that fills all spaces, present in all things. And then we have elemental duality, since we're doing a duality thing. We have elements can influence a variety of emotional, positive, and negative states. Fire influences passion and fury. Air influences cunning and madness. Earth influences stability and stubbornness. Water influences tranquility and indecisiveness. And spirit influences bravity or bravity. Okay, I combined bravery and naivety together, and that's how we got bravity. So spirit influences bravery and naivety. Okay. So, anyway, the danger, because not all these are bad, but the ones that are bad, here's the threat that they can pose. Because each one of these spirits are unique, the danger level varies. Some can cause mental and physical ailments. Depending on its strength, it can physically attack living beings, leaving them with scratches, bruises, burns, etc. But that is more on the rare side. So, guys, it is more rare for that to happen. Depending on the element associated to this spirit, it can attract that certain element also takes a lot of power. So that is extremely rare to have a malevolent one with that much power to be used intentionally to hurt other beings. So that's important.
Would you say that people that practice certain magical things would be able to use an elemental and kind of like taint its or use it for its more malevolent purposes? Because
Yes.
yeah, so elementals for me probably are more neutral, but in certain situations they got, like you're saying, they can be negative. But would you say that from your research that's a possibility?
Oh, absolutely. I've already
Okay,
experienced that on the astral realm.
gotcha.
Mhm. Cuz yeah, thank you for saying that cuz I forgot.
No
But
problem.
yes, it is important to note that these things can be altered, like the intent that it has on another being could be altered through witchcraft and any kind of magical like rituals and stuff. So, yes, that is important to note.
I was just going to say that's so interesting because the thing that I saw in your solar plexus had like craters of earth. Like it looked like something like an asteroid had landed, or it could turn into a like a pit volcano or something. Like it was just like a
Mhm.
pit and it had earth around it. So I'm wondering if it's some type of elemental entity. I just wanted to add that in because it's a mix
Yeah.
between fire and earth.
Yeah,
And I think they can mix together sometimes, even though there's different ones. I think like somehow
absolutely.
they come together. But I mean, I'm not as big on elementals. It's not something I feel like I've experienced a lot. I probably have more so, and I am now. But I just wanted to mention that I thought it was interesting.
Well, so from my perspective, what I saw, that same spot was red. It was very fleshy, but it also did look like magma.
I agree.
So fire, if you mix fire and earth, you can get magma.
Right, right. And one of the experiences I'm going to share have to do with that. But anyways,
Yeah. So fire can bring on fires. Okay, it's not funny, but anyway. Air can bring on winds. So, depending on region in which one lives, somewhat dictates the rarity of certain ones. So, for example, if you live in the woods or the forest, you are more likely to encounter earth elementals. If you live near bodies of water, you are more likely to encounter water elementals. It is actually more rare to encounter a negative elemental naturally. I want to say naturally.
right.
Luckily, you are more likely to find a good or neutral one. But remember, okay, you had a client with
Yes.
that lived near a body of water, and I remember seeing in water elemental. I forget what it is called, but in Japan or Japanese culture, it's the spirit that looks like a turtle, but it has legs like a person, and it's in the water and it takes children and stuff.
Ooh, I haven't personally heard of that one, but I believe you because there's all kinds of things all over the earth. Like that's
Mhm.
crazy.
But yeah, that's one of my experiences. So yeah, we're going to talk about the experience part. But so in my previous house, I had a bunch of shit going on, as y'all know, because I talk about it a lot. But one thing I do remember seeing is a rock spider earth elemental thing, and
Oh yeah.
how it attracted thousands of astral spiders into my room, and there were thousands all over the wall. And yeah. And it would dangle, so the big earth one would dangle from the fan like a creepy, oh, I hate it, with the legs and doing its like no.
Can you please draw that and make it like a lights at midnight screensaver? Because that's creepy as fuck.
Fuck yeah, I can.
That would be cool because like I want to offer people like pictures, like digital art. It doesn't have to be fancy, fancy. I'm just saying, like that would be really fucking wicked.
Fuck yeah,
Anyways,
we'll make it a wallpaper. So yeah, it attracted thousands of astral spiders into my room and it covered the wall and freaking gross. But the interesting thing about it, right? So normally when I'm on the astral realm, this is gonna sound cray cray, but you know, it is what it is. I have a sword. I have multiple swords, and I like to, attack entities or defend myself, with this sword when I have to. I don't do it like for fun. I don't go around being like, ha ha ha, slice. No, this is for defense only. But I remember when I was trying to chop at this thing, I would hear click clink from the blade of my sword. And yeah, that thing was hard to
yeah.
slice. But I figured out, I think I combined fire with it, and for whatever reason it worked. But I don't know why it worked because I didn't think
Oh,
fire was a weakness of earth. I thought water
it
was.
can be though, even though they complement each other. So this
Yeah.
gets into the realm of like how I understand elementals and how they work because I remember this now. You were telling me this,
Mhm.
and I was like, "That's an elemental," because I haven't really like
Yeah.
got into them like that. And you're like, "Yeah," we got all excited. But yeah, so it makes sense because even though fire and earth can work together, it either scorches the earth. It actually can bring about rebirth, but at a certain temperature, fire, flames, heat can melt earth and turn it and
Purify.
transform it into something else. So
Mhm.
there's a whole big old thing about how that works, even between astrology and just how the chemical reactions, and it all really goes together. But anyways.
Well, I sliced that bitch. And
Yeah,
that was
like
the
I
end.
sliced this tomato on this sandwich.
Ooh, I want a BLT even though I can't have the B part, but
I know that sucks.
But so, I did that. It was fine. I moved out of that house, but then, them things came back because I wasn't there to cleanse the space. And I feel bad for the people that live there.
Now
Even
that
though
speaks volumes. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was like, even though only one person technically has seen it, but will refuse to admit they've seen it, but I know they've seen it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It just speaks volumes to the area,
Hmm.
and you may be getting into this or have poked a little bit about it already in elementals, but they stick to certain areas, and this really speaks to like Native American stuff too, and the things that they experience spiritually. Like native indigenous people were very in tuned with their environmental and elemental things,
Hmm. You
which
know,
you could make a whole podcast about. And I really want to because I have Cherokee background and I really, somewhere, some way, I want to do it. But, anyways,
you know what really makes me sad?
what's
when
that?
when I was 9 years old, right? So we have I don't want to call it a landfill. It's like a field behind my house. So it's like we have our backyard and then we have a fence and then it drops down this hill and then there's like a field. When I was like 9 years old, I dug up what looked like a fossil of like a foot of an animal and I'm so pissed that I
Oh, wow.
did not keep it, but it looked like the foot of a lizard.
Really? That's
Yes.
interesting.
And I'm so pissed that I didn't keep it. But like if Allie's listening right now cuz she's my neighbor or was my neighbor, she probably remembers that.
Very cool. We'll have
But
to bring Allie on sometime.
oh yeah, it'll get freaky deaky, man, cuz
I would love to.
I tell her everything.
Right.
As much as I tell you, she knows
Right.
everything.
Every crack and cranny.
Mhm.
Oh,
Uh,
that sounded awful. Not like that. You know what I mean.
that's what she said. Anyway, so I also had another experience with an elemental, but this one was strictly an earth elemental, and this one was more neutral. But it looked like a compilation of rocks with flowers and plants and stuff. It looked really pretty. But it actually did save me from a demonic spider entity, which I don't know if that one per se was an elemental. All I know is that thing was evil and yeah, it was essaying people that it had captured.
That's
And
awful.
yeah, and the earth elemental actually rescued me from that situation.
Yes, I have a earth element spirit guide. So
Yes, you
when you're
do.
done with your information, I will happily tell. I probably spoke about it, but I'll go in a little more
He
detail.
looks like Gravelier the Pokemon, just saying.
Right. I don't they sent me pictures of him because, I'm not, here's where people unsubscribe. I'm not into anime as much as other people, but yeah, I call him Rocky. But if you want me to go ahead and say it, I'll just like Rocky.
Do
I
it.
saw him a few months back finally because I don't always necessarily see my spirit guides. I just communicate with them and know they're there. But Rocky comes in and like think of like the Hulk, but made of stone. And the inside of his mouth is like lava. So like his being is representative of fire and his outer shell is earth. So that's an example of how they work together. And this thing like Hulk smashes, like how I can open in my astral experiences, let me say, how I'm visually able to open up tears in fabrics. He smashes these things so hard they go down through like that tear in that space. And I've sent him with people before and they've been able to validate like I sent his energy to their home to help protect. They actually saw the thing, and even though he appears a little differently to everyone, this thing, if you saw it, it would be scary. I mean, it doesn't look comforting. It looks like it's going to Hulk smash you to pieces, but it's for certain types of entities that, just need to be taken care of and pushed out. So, and there are more, and it's so interesting. Like, I did not know this until after I figured out I had Rocky. Going back to Liv and M, Liv has a rock spirit guide too. So I really would love to hear her story about what he does for her, but we do different type of work. But anyways is my thing today. But anyways,
Yeah, so now we're gonna jump up ahead to bugs because these kind of fall in somewhat because some elementals can look like bugs and some bugs can look like elementals.
yes,
Yas. So, let me just preface this classification by saying that not all bug spirits are bad, but some play an important role in keeping nature balanced while also teaching other beings important lessons that will not be negated. However, there are some that are harmful to other beings and just wreak havoc. From personal encounters, I've noticed many homes and properties infested with them, along with some being spiritual and parasitic attachments to humans and other beings. All living bugs have their own spirit attached to them, like all organisms, but then we have, like their living counterparts, some of these bugs become pests and infest places. This could have to do with a certain type of energy located in a specific area that they are attracted to. There might be an overabundance of living bugs in a certain area that they feel comfortable commingling with. Sometimes these bug entities are filled with so much hate and revenge that they look for their subject of negative attention. So, like, let's say you have a person that likes to burn ants alive and they think it's fun. Well, maybe some of those ants could come back and torture you as their revenge. It's kind of
or
like,
maybe like the queen ant will come and crawl in your ear while you're asleep.
yeah. It's kind
Oh,
of
no.
like how some negative earthbound spirits like become negative. Some of them want revenge.
True, and there could be, like you said, an ant spirit that comes
Mhm.
and, like, you feel creepy crawlies all over your body. You just never
Yeah.
know. Shit gets really twisted and weird. It's like the Twilight Zone.
This is the Twilight Zone.
Yep.
So, some examples we have here: astral spiders, astral fleas, mantis spirits, and worms of all kinds. Sure. Danger. Most of these spirits do similar things in terms of how they affect or harm humans. While these entities can't manifest physically 90% of the time, sometimes they can, though. Like, you'll be like, oh shit, and you'll see one, but then it's gone. But they do have the ability to attract physical living bugs into a space, which can pose health risks to humans and animals. These spirits can also affect physical and mental health. Some of them eat at your aura and life force, which can directly cause a person to succumb to illness. They have the ability to disrupt chakra flow and create blocks, but also while they're eating at your aura and stuff, that could lower your defenses to attract other negative spirits, and it'll make it easier for them to successfully attack you. And
Yes.
yeah. And These are one of the most common entities to encounter naturally, and it doesn't take much to attract them. They are the most common entities that I see with clients and just being out and like out of my house, like even in my house. They're like sometimes they have to pop in and then I'm like, "Okay, we're going to do a cleansing." But the most spirit I see are the spiders, like the astral spiders.
Yeah, and I think it's because you have experienced their vibration, therefore you can see them easier, and that is a good point to say. It just clicked with me. If you have experienced an entity or a being's vibration and you are a psychic medium, it's easier to tap back into that, however that happens. So you'll be able to see them more frequently. So I think that explains why you personally perceive them more frequently than myself, which I think, instead of two categories, I think parasites actually do fall under bugs too.
Yeah, that's why I have it directly underneath it too.
Yeah, I think because we're gonna, well, I'm just prefacing,
Mhm.
but I think like they really go hand in hand.
They do. So, as far as experiences, like I said, astral spiders, like I see them all the goddamn time. Um, Almost every place I've been to has them. It's creepy, I don't like it. But I've also seen a mantis spirit, and I've talked about this so many times on like other like social media accounts. I don't know how much I've spoke about it on here, but um I did see a mantis spirit causing physical and mental issues for a client. And at my office, I've seen a flea spirit attached to a customer and trying to attach to me. And I was like, oh, hell no, back the hell up, back it up. So I am very in tune to bug spirits, but also I feel like that has to do with me like as a person and as a child growing up, I always had a fascination with bugs and insects and arachnids and all that stuff. I wanted to go to college to study them for forensic science, and so I always was fascinated with bugs and stuff. So I feel like too I have a closer relationship with them, but also being an earth element sign too.
Yes, very much so. And, that's your vibe. That's where you vibe, whether it's positive or negative, you can vibe within that frequency and like see these things. And it's pretty wicked. Like, and if you think it's a good rule of thumb, I think here, if you think about the characteristics of insects and the type of insect or bug or arachnid or whatever you're dealing with, take those traits and apply it to elementals. It's just like take the traits of fire, apply it to that elemental, and you'll be able to understand that creature being entity more.
Mhm. Yepperdoodle. And then so the next one is parasites. So that could be a subcategory or its own category because
Yes.
not all parasites are bugs. But anyway, so these spirits specifically leech off other sentient beings in order to fuel themselves. This can impact the host's mental, physical, and spiritual health in negative ways. So it can make the host succumb to more and or severe physical mental illnesses, or it can make those things worse. Can deteriorate a being's spiritual defenses, such as their aura and spiritual control on the astral realm. You might lack control over what you do on the astral realm and overall astral experiences, and make it easier for negative spirits to attack and attach to you and block any abilities you may possess.
Yes.
Uh-huh. And this could be a subcategory, like I said, to many spirits because there are multiple types of each spirit. There are bugs, oceanic, familiar, poltergeist spirits, etc., that can fall under this category as well. Some examples are spider spirits, squid spirits, flea spirits, demonic spirits. So, like you have your incubus and your succubus, they're pretty much draining you of your life force energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. And it's a very common thing. So for attachments, people have different beliefs, but I've just to insert this in here for the conversation. I feel attachments can be literally directly on the body in your auric field, in your energy field, or depending on the where you're at with the particular attachment and its proximity. They can be 50 feet away from you at all times, you know, because these are beings that can exist in multiple places, some in some senses. So they it could be like a not quite an omnipresent energy, but if that makes sense. And like you can have these things, you know, around you to a degree within a certain range. It's this really a range thing for parasitic type entity. So you might not have a direct like attachment, which I would refer to as a direct attachment versus an indirect attachment. So I think I'm going to have to create a definition for that in the coming time here. But anyways, I wanted
Yep.
to add that. And like they can be physically on you, they can be around you. You know, so
Mm-hmm. And then we get into the dangers. Most of these spirits do similar things in terms of how they affect or harm humans. These entities can't manifest physically, but can cause a lot of damage to the spiritual body. Some of them eat at your aura, which can open you up to spiritual attack or negative entities. They have the ability to disrupt chakra flow and create blocks. These spirits can also affect physical and mental health. Some eat at a person's life force, which can directly cause a person to succumb to illness. These are one of the most common entities to encounter naturally, and it doesn't take much to attract them, just like the bug ones. So,
yeah,
yeah, they're definitely the bug ones and the parasite ones. You're more likely to encounter those than demonic ones.
I agree because you're more like there's so many more just for the sake of words bugs in the world than there
Hmm.
are animals than there are humans. So you would want to translate this over to the spiritual because things exist in the physical and the spiritual.
Yep. And then we don't even know, like, on other planets, what other lives exist and what other creatures exist. So if they have a physical body, you know they got a spiritual body.
Right, so it translates throughout the universe and dimensions and time, and it gets all where your head wants to explode. Reading Rainbow.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah,
Parasites, well, I would say the entity that chasts all inside my body is considered parasitic. And
yes,
I've
and I have some more information I want to tell you about that. I forgot.
Yep. And then the incubus situation that I had a while back, like a few years ago, also I would consider as parasitic. But anyway, Chastity,
Mhm.
what is your part?
Okay, so going back to the whole range, like close proximity versus further proximity, as you work these things away from you, and like you're in the trenches with your experiences and things are happening as you work to get these things away from you. It's like sometimes they don't just disappear; they actually are pushed further and further back away from you to the point where they can only watch you and not touch you. First and foremost, second of all in the last episode, which is part one of our Dark Malevolent Spirits episode here, I talk about the or I guess you could say it's an entity or a being that is what I feel kind of attached to Emily in her solar area or solar plexus area. And then when we talk about dimensions and frequencies and duality, I start the story there. So if you're following along, you'll know what I'm talking about. If not, it's still very interesting. So one of the functions in my notes when I was channeling information and doing a little bit of meditative work was this being that resembles like the Earth's crust and then the lava pit, basically, that has an eyeball that rolls to the front. It's really weird. It's like a sleeping. It's like a dormant kind of volcano. And I think that it is actually transmutating energy. I think it's actually like a vortex or more like a vortex itself. It's actually sucking in energy and transmutating it to continue to live. So I think that it's constantly pulling in off a yeah, in a way, but I think that the things she experiences, it might attract things to her, but this thing is something else because from a couple episodes ago, I talk about how it has like fleshy webs that reminds me of like how space contracts and like constrains over time, and due to like black holes and stuff, it kind of works like that. I think it actually sucks in and transmutates energy for its own purposes. And when it's not getting what it needs or wants, it pulls off of Emily. That was what I actually channeled in. As crazy as that sounds, that's what I've channeled in about this actual, what we have determined could potentially be a parasitic entity, and they are common. Just because you have one does not mean that, you know, you can't go function with your life. Does it make your life more difficult? Absolutely. It can make your life much more difficult. Um with all that being said, that really to me feels like a parasitic entity, and it's something I think Emily has dealt with for a very long time.
Yeah.
I think it's something she's had since she got her illness at the very least, because if you have listened to previous episodes yet again, it's kind of, you know, our podcast is evolving over time. We're taking you through like a storyline and through things. So if you haven't seen our other episodes, a lot of this would make more sense. But yeah, I think it's been there since she was around 8 years old when she started experiencing things, and her illness at almost the same time.
I
And I think
agree.
it come from your house. Wait a minute. Here's an epiphany though. This thing has like a rocky crust. You were dealing in your home that this all started happening. It has a rocky crust, and then like the spider was rocky too. I think this came from that area. So the area your childhood home is built on has these types of elementals, and like a reflective of actual nature. Like there is a spiritual nature to that area, and I would almost guarantee that there is some Native American or indigenous people that have lived in that area, and I would be very interested to do some research into that area. But anyways, that's what I have about parasitic beings. And
So I did some really quick research for the area that I had lived in previously, and I found that it was indeed inhabited by the Lenni Lenape Native Americans, also known as the Delaware Indians. So Chastity was 100% correct.
so if there's any more updates, we're going to be looking into ways to get this thing gone.
Mm-hmm. And it's like every time I try to get rid of it and have my spirit guides work on it, it puts me to sleep.
Yeah, it's so weird. It is so interesting. But I used to have that happen too when I tried to work on what I would consider my attachment, and when I
Mm-hmm.
would go into a meditative state. And like this, Emily's not new at this. And this was when I was newer, but it would happen to me too when I actually had an attachment, and it would take me for a fucking ride. But she's not new at this. She's been doing like astral stuff much longer than I've even realized I was doing it, and like telling people about it. So this, she's not, you know, a newbie at this, and this still can happen to us. So it's just worthy note, like you're not 100% exempt from things. Even if you are more advanced in your spiritual work, you still have to have, you know, your guards. Although this, I feel, has been here longer intuitively, it just, everything just doesn't leave when you decide to become spiritual or when you start realizing you have psychic abilities. It is a process. So something just to say.
I want to add something that we may or may not have to cut because of the it might be sensitive topic to people,
Uh-huh.
but like, so you know how people get STDs and stuff from, having relationships with other people, right? But like,
Yes.
what about having, like, being assaulted on the astral realm and stuff? Could that happen? I feel like it could.
So, yes, I believe that, and I've heard this through other people, and I truly believe that if you have what could be considered a spiritual husband or wife, or you have some type of SA attack in a spiritual sense, because some people think that's hogwash, that's a country term, some hogwash, but it's not. There are many people that suffer from some type of abuse, and a lot of times it could be psychological, but then you have people that never experienced that in real life. You have people that have. A lot of times this happens to people that have because they play in on their pain, emotions, and fears, and then they end up getting some strange disease in their reproductive areas. So, yes, absolutely. I feel that we should keep that in and, yeah, make
But
it a point.
so the point I was gonna add was with all of like when I had the bad hauntings and stuff and would have like SA like astral experiences. I mean, I know that entity that is attached to me has been there for a while, but isn't it possible then that you could also get a parasitic entity through something like that as well?
I mean, it's a possibility. I mean, I wouldn't see why it's not. Personally, I haven't never experienced anything like that, but I would say it is very possible because there is a ranking in the spiritual world. There are spiritual rules, and I think certain things are attached to certain things, which are attached to certain things, just like we're all connected. We are all connected. So it does, I mean, if something it would be just would it be a reverse of like how you were explaining, you can be attacked by more evil, we'd say evil or bad entities from a parasitic attachment, then if that correlates, then why couldn't it work the opposite way?
Yeah, because my guides were trying to show me that it's possible, but I wasn't sure if what they were showing me and what I was seeing was like right.
I'm gonna say yes because then, what I just said was you can have those types of attacks, and through those energetic attacks, because they are energetic, and then
Mhm.
start having things go wrong with your reproductive system. And then, certain like a squid entity is said to attach to people, and this is like a Brazilian a mythological concept. That's what they call it. There's a certain egg entity that has like it hatches and it sticks to your aurora, your body or whatever, and then its tentacles start to cause disease to spread throughout your body. So speaking in that kind of sense, yes, I think it's absolutely possible. And if it's an egg, what deposits the egg? Like I didn't do enough research on that because I found that during this bit of research, but yeah. So that is a
Mhm.
very big possibility.
Yeah. So, I guess we'll keep that in then.
Faux show.
Yeah, that was it on my parasite. So that's all I've got. Hey, Lant fam! Have you been thinking of starting your own podcast venture? If so, consider using Podbean as your one stop shop for everything podcasting. You can create, record, host, distribute, monetize, and merge your podcast all from the Podbean mobile app or your desktop setup. Podbean offers a 4-tier pricing plan that is sure to fit everyone's podcasting needs, starting with the free basic plan for anyone that signs up with an account. Chas and I currently use the Ultimate Audio plan that starts at $9.99 a month for a yearly subscription, and it really has been the most valuable tool as new podcasters with minimal equipment. Honestly, I just use my iPhone and iPhone headphones, and she just uses her tablet without her headphones. So it's like even if you don't have a desktop computer, you could still record from any mobile device. It's awesome and it still sounds great. Use our link in the show's description box below or visit www.podbean.com/lamp. That's LAMP to start your podcasting journey. By using this link, you will receive 1 month of Podbean's Ultimate plan for free. You won't regret it. As always, thank you for your support, and now back to the show.
Okay. So Emily has just discussed, a lot of earthly things, things that are representative of Earth, whether it's the elements or the beings and animals and creatures and all that stuff that's found here on Earth. So I figured this was the best place to put cryptids, even though, on the level of intensity or malevolence, they could be even above bugs and parasites in a way, but truly, after the description that Emily just gave, the understanding that I currently have, I feel like they fall right under that because they're generally elusive. type things, things that are only saw by a few, still very much, not proven by science, of course, because that's what qualifies them as a cryptid. But for the identification and placement, basically the definition, they are mythological or legendary creatures known as physical and or spiritual entities that can potentially have a modgepodge of animalistic features. Some even resemble humans that are, and it's not presently known to the scientific community due to lack of scientific evidence. So they do not have a body that a past body of a creature of such. They don't have any physical evidence of them existing, which will bring me to a point later. Those that study entities these types of entities are referred to as crypto. I'm sorry, not crypto. I said crypto. It corrected to cryptozoologists. I might be it though.
It's
Cryp-
cryptologists.
yeah, crypto. It says cryptozoologist. So that cryptid zoologist, whatever. We'll just say they basically,
Cryptologist.
yes, tits. Tits. Yes, so it's the people that study cryptids, and the first guy that kind of come up with this was back in the 1950s. Yeah, I know I suck because I didn't remember or write down his name, but he's the one that kind of coined that term, and it is considered a pseudoscience developed, like I said, in the 1950s. So, stories and encounters can be dated back to 300 AD, dealing with these types of beings. And they come from every corner of the earth and can inhabit the land, air, and sea. A lot of the stories are derived from firsthand encounters that have been passed down through the generations. Each cryptid comes with its own distinctive identifying factors that cover a broad range of descriptive characteristics and mannerisms that are included but not limited to their physical features, which is varies based on the physical location and eyewitness descriptions. So somebody can see a Jersey Devil, but they see it differently, than somebody else, but it's still like got the same animalistic or human features. Then you have like the Wendigo. Some people see it as like a humanoid creature with like blood all over it, and it's just wicked, and others see it the way that we're commonly, commonly see it on other things. So the characteristic and mannerisms continued. The feeding behaviors. A lot of cryptids are like, you'll find a mutilated cow, and it's no known like animal attack. Even people that raise cattle and had their, or just on a farm and had their animals attacked by other animals. You just can't tell actually what happened. Like the heart's been cut out. Now, this has been related to satanic practices at times, but there are cases that cryptids could be the culprit. The threat to humans, so their threat level to humans and animals, is another characteristic or mannerism that is associated with cryptids. Their stealthiness. A lot of them are real stealthy. If you're in the water, there's different ways to see them. Think of Loch Ness Monster. The sounds and calls. Sometimes cryptids can only be identified by the way they make sounds and call out. Some of them mimicking. Some of them just have their own communication. And then odd smells and or residual biomaterial. Ew. Yeah. So the odd smells. Certain cryptids are said to have a smell. I recently just listened to And That's Why We Drink, which I'm kind of new to that podcast. I know, right? Where's my life been? But I listened to one, and they were talking about somebody seeing an animal and shooting it that was definitely a cryptid, and it had a stench. But this also goes with things like the Bigfoot and the residual biomaterial, so they could leave behind some substance, kind of like Ghostbusters. But these creatures and their potential existence generally end up falling into the pseudoscience categories such as ghost hunting and paranormal investigation and ufology. I don't know if that's how they pronounce it, but it's UFOlogy. So the study of UFOs. Okay. So the descriptions of interactions and the level of malevolence. With such a wide variety of cryptid experiences and stories that have been told for millennia around the world, it's very difficult to narrow down all the potential negative interactions that cryptids can have with mankind. But I'm going to give it a good shot and try to explain it in a collective way. Basically, I would like to only focus mostly on North American cryptids in this explanation as well, because like I was saying at the parameters of this episode and the previous episode, there's just so much to cover. We just need to kind of focus on the area we're in and venture out later. So, people having experienced a cryptid encounter report feeling watched and or a general bad feeling that that something was hunting them down like prey before they actually see the entity. Generally, you're going to see the entity or hear it to know. Sometimes they don't, though. They don't see the actual cryptid, but they can identify it through its sound. There are reports of strange, unfamiliar, animalistic noises around many negative cryptic experiences, and it sends chills down the spines of even the most experienced woodsmen, which basically means people that are very knowledgeable about wooded areas, people that are hunters, or people that have been raised in these types of places and just know the land. They know the animal calls, they know the animal sounds. Someone that has not been raised in an area such or has that kind of knowledge may hear an owl, for example. There's a certain owl around here that sounds like a something really strange, and it only happens during certain times, and people have called it like Bigfoot in this area. And I've actually looked up that sound, and it sounds just like the owl, like a night owl's mating call. So, people that are woodsmen, so to speak, they know these sounds. So when you have a very experienced person that spent 30 years in the woods and they hear something that they're not aware of, that's when you want to get scared. Nothing scares me more than a man that knows the woods, that could be potentially crazy, knows the woods, and knows how to shoot a gun. That's scarier than for me than any like gangbanger gangster shit, honestly. Like, I know that sounds awful to say, but you go to certain places and you're like scared to go to certain places because it could be a violent area in certain parts of your town or cities and stuff. It scares me more. That don't scare me. Ride through, mind your business, go about your business. Things are cool. What scares me no more is going to like an isolated area and know that there could be people potentially in the woods that know how to hunt you down and chop you up into little pieces. But anyways, I just wanted to have that as a
See, I'm the opposite. I'd rather take my chances in the woods. I feel one with the woods. Whereas in the city where there's some dangerous places, fuck that shit. I ain't going there. I'd rather
I
take my
understand.
chance with one dude than a bunch of dudes.
Right. I get that. And I mean, I understand your perspective. Everybody has a different perspective. I mean, I was raised in the city. I was raised in like a very cultured area, so that for whatever reason that doesn't bother me as much as it would like even if it was what could be a family like the fucking hills have eyes. That's just way more scary to me because then
Mhm.
I've seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I know what the fuck happens. But anyways, back on
I'm
subject.
earth though. I'm an earth sign, so I feel like it makes more sense that I would be more at peace.
Yeah, you be more at peace as they're chopping you up in their basement.
Dang. Listen, you think I would be going unarmed? No, because you don't know. I was like,
Tits.
okay, just because I'd be peace in the woods doesn't mean I'm dumb and would go unarmed.
We're not saying well, I'm not saying that. I'm
I
saying in a
know.
situational sense. Like if you had to be put in one or two places to survive, I don't know. I don't know. That's a
I'm
tough
ready.
situation.
I'm
Like we're
ready.
thinking horror movies here, but okay.
I'd be making friends with them animals. I'd be like, yo, you are now daddy and you are now brother. So
Oh shit, getting raised by monkeys. You
fuck
got the
yeah.
whole
Get raised by
Aurora. What is it?
wolves.
Aurora, the Disney princess Aurora. You got the Aurora vibes.
Or Snow White.
Yep. All right. So back to cryptids because we're crazy. Many have seen certain types of cryptids eating flesh covered in blood or remnants of leftover meals that and things that don't look like normal animal attacks. So like they see like the abnormal animal attack, they see them feeding on an animal and they come up covered in blood. A lot of times that is associated with certain types of cryptids, more so than others. This is a commonality among the stories that have been relayed. Often, those that experience such encounters are left running for their lives in fear of becoming the next meal. Some even report being chased. So, these are facts, actually. People like swear by this stuff. Certain cryptids have reported to mimic sounds and or footsteps of a person experiencing the encounter before finally catching a glimpse of the monstrous being. There are reports of people going out into the woods, generally where these encounters happen because they can either be land, by air, by sea, so generally a remote area. So this makes me think of the many disappearances in the national parks. There are so many theories regarding that issue, so I'll leave that there. But, there's so many theories around why people go missing in national parks. Love to cover that one day, and intuitively channel in some stuff. But I think it could have something to do with these cryptid entities or beings.
Or people with
Often,
machetes.
Bigfoot done learn some things. All right. Often, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me because people leave their junk everywhere. So Bigfoot's like, oh, what's this? And they figure out they can just cut down trees instead of snapping them in half. Anyways, often there will be reports of finding evidence in an area where certain cryptids are said to inhabit, including snapped trees. I wonder who that is. Who's the culprit? Odd structures made from natural materials and tracks that do not match any that are known to modern science. And these are the people that carry like plaster cast with them and stuff, or actually go out on these expeditions looking for a certain popular cryptid. I'm going to get to that in a second, though. These encounters can happen either day or night, but generally happen in rural areas that are not majoritarily inhabited by humans. Many of the encounters are reported by Native American and indigenous tribes for this very reason and over a long period of time. So it gets very interesting because some of these things that indigenous tribes, Native American tribes used to do was use their knowledge of spirit and create and or invoke beings that were said to help them like win wars and stuff. And there's one specific one I'd like to talk about a little bit later in this podcast briefly. But they would invoke these spirits and they made it out to be like an actual thing they would see from the tales passed down. Well, this is where for me I think cryptids can be either physical or spiritual or both. This is why maybe people can't find them because they're actually not 100% physical. Are there some 100% physical cryptids? I believe so, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So my conclusion from the description of like what they do, how you can experience them, their mannerisms, all that stuff. Overall, I firmly believe that there are things that as humans we have yet to discover in nature, especially when it comes to the vast depths of the ocean or the almost uninhabitable parts of the mountains and the last frontiers of Alaska. Some of the accounts and evidence that regular Joes catch is striking, and the only way to prove or disprove the existence of these beings is to go search for yourself. People have photos and casts and all that, but they're saying we can debunk this and we can debunk this. But there's a lot of people that actually go on expeditions, especially for the Yeti or Bigfoot, whatever you want to call it. And they go out and they search for these things and they come back with evidence. Now, is that evidence made up versus whatever else? Well, that's for, the public to decide. So, from a psychic standpoint, I myself have experienced certain types of beings in the physical and spiritual realms, which to me says it's some of these experiences are not just of flesh and
Bud.
bud. Why? Zer. Anyways, that's old commercial. If you're not old enough to know that commercial, and you probably that really gave away my age. Anyways, basically, if they're not of flesh and blood, but of spiritual nature, that is why cryptids are on our list of potentially malevolent spirits due to the possible dualistic existence and or some not being exactly physical creatures. I had to read that a little slow so I could get that tongue twister out. It sounded really good when I wrote it, though. Okay. you know, okay, look, I'm trying here, y'all. Come on. All right. So, for existence and function and popular examples of cryptids. So, generally, like the way I've done my research is I did existence and function and then did popular examples. But for cryptids, I just put that together. So, I've emerged the existence and function and popular examples of cryptids into the same category based on the plethora of information available, as well as just it seems to make more sense. It's our podcast. We do what we want.
I'll do what I want,
Do
God.
the one. Do the one. I have included things that I have personally encountered or have an interesting story attached to. You know, I could name off a whole bunch of cryptids, and I probably will towards the end of this this little example here. But I wanted to start with ones that I had some type of knowledge of or familiar experience of. So, can y'all guess which one I'm going to start with first?
Well, I it's either spiders or Bigfoot.
Oh, it's Bigfoot, girl. It's big. It's that Bigfoot.
Like me too though, like me too.
I mean, it's like the one everybody knows, you know, and
Mhm.
had some funny things I want to say. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. Okay, why not start off with the first cryptid that comes to everyone's mind? And when the word's uttered, you think, you know, everybody's like, yeah, Bigfoot's my man. Well, known by many different names like Sasquatch, the abominable snowman, and Yeti, which is based on the location and culture of the sightings. It's one of the most popular, obviously, cryptid stories in the world. You may ask why I've included everyone's favorite neighborhood Yeti on this malevolent list. Well, let me tell you.
We're gonna get into some Yeti spaghetti with a little bit of confetti.
It's
Yeti
got to have
confetti.
meatballs.
Meet the
Okay.
balls.
That'll make a lot more petty sense in just a few seconds. Um, oh God. Well, let me tell you, not all stories that people have had and the recounts they tell are positive. There are some stories that have been told through the ages that claims these ape-like creatures steals human women and makes babies with them. Oh, oh. So now you know why you need meatballs with that Yeti spaghetti. That would literally be fucked though. See now
Now you can say yes, daddy.
I'm good. Oh god, no, I had to put in a little comedy and, like, break all this
Mhm.
malevolent shit up because it gets kind of funny, yeah, so anyways, it would be really fucked up for real though,
Yeah.
and is I had to ask myself, "Is this where all the Bigfoot dick jokes come in?" Because if so, it's not funny anymore, you know, it's like it's just weird. You can everybody says like my Bigfoot dick, you know, but for real, like this is said to happen, and like sometimes
Never heard that phrase before.
you ain't never heard bigger than Bigfoot. It might be
No.
a dialect thing. But yeah, that's something that a lot of people joke about around here. But then my reference was, you know, how really big is Bigfoot's dick? And then like Betty Sue speaks up from the other side of the room. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Because it's saying for real, like people have been, and I joke about it and I shouldn't, but at the same time though, like for real, people say this has happened to them or they're never seen again. And they also make another type of cryptid species that's half human, half Bigfoot. Also, there's an account that I read a few years ago that talks about this little old woman living in a cabin. And she lived in this cabin for quite a while. She was an elderly woman. She may have been of indigenous cultural background, have an indigenous cultural background. And she knew about these things. Well, there was a woman in her family that like moved in like in the same area. I think they could actually see each other's cabin, and the woman was like leaving out like things to pacify these creatures. Well, and by doing so, you know, the lady thought she was crazy. Like, yeah, okay, whatever. Well, the lady that moved in, the new like neighbor, started having experiences about the Bigfoot and eventually ended up seeing them. And ultimately, what happened was, is the lady was like, she knew the ropes with them, but something happened where she wasn't able to pacify like leaving them out stuff so they wouldn't come in her house. It was almost like a protective thing that they actually broke into her house and took the old lady. And now this is supposedly a true experience, passed down through the generations. You know, and then obviously Bigfoot is, you know, or the Yeti is very a very interesting story because you hear of like, you know, they're harmless, which I think maybe some of them are. They're supposedly different species, of course, like I said, and I believe in Bigfoot. Like, look, if there's, you know, the things that we believe in, if I couldn't believe in a Bigfoot, then, you know, I'm just saying, Bigfoot is real. I think a lot of people know it. Can they exist in a physical form? I think they are. Can they exist in a spiritual form? They very well could. But I think they're just very elusive creatures that live in the crevices and cracks of certain places around the world.
Chastity. Chastity.
What?
I was gonna say, I have an experience with the sassy squatchy.
You got sassy with Sasquatch?
No, but I have an experience with Sasquatch.
Okay.
Can I share it?
No, absolutely not. Why are you asking me? Okay, now go ahead.
Okay, so I had a Sasquatch Bigfoot experience, and I was doing a meditation for somebody. I was looking into some entities for a friend. You probably know who this friend was, but so I was looking, and during my astral realm travel, I came into contact with a Bigfoot. So I believe they're fully interdimensional, so they can appear both on the physical and on the spiritual. But this one was pretty chill. Like, we had a cool conversation. I can't remember everything we were talking about, but I was like, "Oh, yo, you're actually real." And he's like, "Well, yeah." And I'm just like, "Whoa, my mind's blown." And he was
Let's
so
go
chill.
down the strawberry river.
Yeah. And I was like,
Oh,
"Wait, are you one of my guides, like, transformed into, like, this thing?" And he was like, "No, no, 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 no. I'm somebody else. Like, I am my own being. So, hi."
that's very interesting. And it
Mhm.
leads me, that's a spiritual, so the spiritual aspect.
Yeah.
That leads me into basically talking about the physical parts of like people think Sasquatch is real here, like in the Appalachia part of the world. So, and I mean, I'm not quite there, but I'm kind of there. We'll just leave it at that. So, people here have explained like they have had things thrown at them. Like people I know, they've had things thrown at them. They've heard sounds. They've seen the snap trees. So, and there's just so many places like they swear that Bigfoot is living in their backyard. I have friends that, or a friend particularly that is really into that stuff, and he doesn't get out much out of his area or whatever. Um, but yeah, he has experienced Bigfoot even here on the East Coast, in the middle of the East Coast, basically. So, before the next example, I think it's important to stop and expand the fact that many cryptid type entities are associated with stories told by indigenous tribes here in the US and basically the North American continent. There are other places that have folklore and mythology about the cryptids. But like I said, we're going to stick to the Native American, indigenous tribe, USA type area. And I wanted to give y'all an example of something that I would personally consider a cryptid. I don't know if everybody would, but from the accounts of the Indian tribe that created this being, so here's an interesting thing. It's called the Ikatomi, and it is a spider, for what I refer to as a spider entity. And they said it was physical, like it literally helped them win wars. So this thing has like a cockroach body, rib cage, like it's kind of terrifying actually. A rib cage like a human, and then like bumpy vertebrae back with a cockroach tail, spider legs, and a human head. I actually had an experience that I will just briefly state while my mother was in the hospital on a respirator. This was dead in the middle of the COVID pandemic. We're getting canceled now because I said that. And
Well,
pretty
yeah,
much,
that's true.
yeah, now we're canceled. It was right in the middle of everything going on. And basically, I was tired. I had sat there with her. She was on a ventilator and she did not have COVID. She has other breathing issues and ended up having some heart issues. So, and then they had to put her under. And while she was on the ventilator, I was sitting beside of her bed. I had put my head down on the bed, and I've discussed with you guys previously in other episodes the way that I start to see mental visions or images with my eyes closed. Well, this was one of those experiences. And I started to see what I just described to you guys about the human head, spider legs, weird ass back. I started to see that in my mind's eye, and I was like, "Oh hell no! What is this?" Because see, normally I'll see some crazy things, but I had never seen anything like that, like awake with my eyes closed at this point in my life. And this was last year, actually. And I saw it like coming down the hallways, and then I would see it creep up on people's shoulders, like on their beds, because everybody was on a ventilator. Every room I passed in this area of the hospital, everybody was, down. They wasn't awake. They had, uh, is it a ventilator? Is it a respirator or a ventilator? Maybe I said it wrong, but you guys know what I'm talking about. They had the tubes down their throat. It was very sad and really odd feeling with everybody just being so quiet and nothing really going on. And this thing was crawling up onto the side of their bed, and it looked like it was sucking their life force. Now, mind you, I thought this was just some creature. I had absolutely zero idea what the fuck was going on. And it noticed me, like it was sitting on somebody and it looked. So when you do these types of vision work, like sometimes I can't help it, it just happens, and sometimes I intentionally do it. I have learned along the way that if you see creatures or things like this, you only have a certain amount of time before they're aware that you're looking into them. I don't know, Emily, if you've experienced anything of the such, but
Yes.
yeah, there's a certain time frame that you have before they realize you can see them. Because now we're talking about something that is interdimensional, not
I think
exist.
it has to do too with like if they can sense your fear. So if it's something scary, so like when I had that demon experience when I was helping my homie and I saw the demon thing in the corner of the room, he was like he was just standing there like a lamb thinking I wouldn't notice and I did. And then
Right.
I started to freak out and then his smile got really big and creepy.
Yeah. I was actually listening to that episode recently, and I remember that distinctively now. Yeah, that was a little creepy. It was either episode or something you sent me.
Mhm.
Anyways, but yeah, so this thing noticed me, and like I'm laying here and I start naturally throwing out like my personal defense, which would be like light energy, especially at that time. And by doing that, I mean like it's like a pulse in a way sometimes. And it's energy that comes out. I start directing my energy towards it and it'll block it out of my mind's eye. Simple as that most of the time. Well, this thing physically touched me. And like I'm literally just sitting in the chair in the hospital. And if you think about it, we've talked about how people can make and create things. Well, this thing literally looked like the Exorcist's girl's head. The closest comparison is like, in the Exorcist movie, the girl's head that was possessed. It had that kind of look to its face. And even back then, I was like, this looks like something that was created by fear and pain and agony and fear, like just straight fear and miserableness. Well, it literally, I felt like little pricklies on my arm, and then the next thing I know, I envision it being I pushing it back with my light, and I push it back into like a door. I know this sounds weird. It was all in black, white, and gray, and I shut the door. So fast forward to this November when I got the Teal Swan Ether Creatures deck. I'm flipping through it. I told everybody, like, I still owe my fans or followers, rather, a video, and I'm going to get to that. But because I've talked about this before, if anybody that listens knows, basically, I was flipping through that card deck, and right there in front of my eyeballs, and I had seen some things that looked similar, but this was dead on except for the head. And that's when I was like, okay, that's some validation. You can believe me or not, but it literally tripped me out so hard because, there's you need the validation when you have these mental experiences. I'm pretty sure I could classify myself as a mental medium at this point, because as much claircognizant abilities that I possess and just knowing things, and then the clairvoyancy and like seeing things that's happening in my mind. But when you see something, I've never seen this thing before, like ever. I've seen like weird spider creatures, but this was to the T the way I described it, except for the head. Come to find out, please, I don't know if it's the Shawnee tribe, but it's one of the tribes from up north. was said to have conjured this being, or it would be a being, I would assume, or entity. They talk about it as being something physical, but I don't know if it was. People have even said they've seen it, but I'm thinking it's more interdimensional, spiritual type. And I would put this on the list for cryptids. I mean, that could be classified under a couple other things, like a lot of things on our list, but because it's a modge podge of animalistic and even human features, it would help this indigenous tribe win wars they would fight. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, how is that? Well, as I read on in her analogy, she says it's not necessarily evil, but I mean, I know I was in a bad way because my mom was in the hospital and I was probably under distress, but for me just to randomly notice this, it speaks volumes to me because it was nowhere near on my mind. And then I see one of these creatures. She even says in the guidebook that it's actually losing energy. This is her in representation of it. It's not necessarily bad. It was used to do things, maybe that could be considered bad, right? But it's losing energy because it's not being paid attention to anymore. Well, guess what? In my vision, before I ever read this, like almost a year later, it is actually sucking the life force out of people that are in the hospital on respirators. Probably said that, ventilators, respirators, whichever. So, I have a different opinion, but that's all about perception. Like a lot of things again on the list, just about your perception and what you choose to work with and whatnot. But that was very validating and terrifying, and I have not seen it since. So these things are, I mean, naturally drawn to places. Now, according to the historical references to the Ikatomi creature, there could have been somebody that was associated with that ethnic background that could have had that type of spirit attached to them from generations before. Therefore, when they are present there, or if they have came there, it could have left that a pathway for that being to travel and stay there and realize, oh wow, there's a lot of people that are basically getting fed energy. You're literally hooked up to a machine that's pumping air, oxygen, life into your body, and the energetic property, the energetic fields and everything from all the machines. It's the perfect place to pull sentient soul energy from people and to survive. So just found that to be very interesting. I'll leave that there. And I'm going to tell you the last example that I personally have for the Mothman is the Mothman. I know quite a bit about it. I actually got to go to Point Pleasant in 2021 when I went to a Paracon up in West Virginia when I toured the West Virginia Penitentiary. It was one crazy week. If y'all have heard the Annabelle story that I told about meeting the real Annabelle like 6 inches away from her and the whole thing that happened. Well, this was another one of those weeks, just a little bit different. It wasn't quite as malevolent or crazy or whatnot, but I will say that, we all probably know a lot about the Mothman. It happened back, I believe it was in the 60s, early 60s. I might be off just a little bit there with the years, but everybody started reporting seeing the Mothman in November. They'd be chased in the cars up at the old power plant, and they described this being as a red eyed, human looking creature, but had kind of like a rounded top bat head or something of the such with bat wings. And people would report seeing it there in Point Pleasant and the surrounding areas. Also, it's important to mention that this area falls within the 37th parallel. So there's a lot of, paranormal, cryptid, UFO activity in this area. Well, the creature was reportedly seen more and more and more up until the catastrophe of the bridge collapse there in Point Pleasant. And then there's people that have said to seen Mothman after. A lot of interesting stories, a lot of interesting newspaper articles. If you ever get a chance to go to Point Pleasant, or you might already know, there is the Mothman Museum. I really enjoyed that. It was quite interesting. There is a haunted motel across the street we almost stayed in, but I didn't. Just gives me a reason to go back to Point Pleasant because it's interestingly enough, the energy in that area, it feels like that town. And if anybody has been there, please feel free to comment somewhere on socials or write us and see if you agree with this. It is literally like stuck in time. It's a time capsule. And the people that work there, and I don't mean any harm by anybody that's from there, but the people that I interacted with, they seemed very much over the work they were doing. They seemed very much just, kind of just like day in, day out, same shit, different day. But there was just this overall dull energy about the place. It's almost like, even the buildings, it's almost like they're stuck in time because there's a lot of historical references. They have a beautiful park that, contributes to the story with the, is it Cornwall? Cornwall Jackson? I might be off on that too, but doing this one from memory. And, they said that the indigenous tribe like cursed the settlers, and that's what kind of created this energy. So, talking previously about the Ikatomi, I think it's very valid. Personally, I can feel the energy of what someone can consider to be Mothman. Like, I really truly think that people were seeing something. And maybe these people had some type of extrasensory perception. Maybe the veil is thinner out there, but there is something off about the area around Point Pleasant. So that's where I'll end on cryptids for now. And we do have a few other things that we're just going to chat about in regards to this episode.
Okay, so as far as Mothman and some of these entities and things, I feel like a lot of people, because they have an idea of what it looks like, it created a thought form and it created that entity.
Yeah, it's very possible. It's very, very possible that it did. I personally resonate back with what you're saying, but I resonate with it back in like, the not 1600s, way off, like 1800s when this happened. I can't remember the
Mhm.
exact date. I'm a shitty researcher, I know, but I got to the point. but, but yeah, I resonate with it being possibly something conjured or created.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, we're going to briefly talk about shapeshifters. After some time, I realized that these were left off the list in a way. We kind of touched on them. We just want to briefly touch on them and have a conversation about shapeshifters because me and Emily both have experienced things that have the ability to shapeshift. There's multiple entities or beings, rather, if they have the ability to shapeshift and it is in an entity form, which would, for my definition that I set for myself, would be of like Earth not able to move between dimensions, then that's some really crazy, crazy stuff. And it's always possible. But in my personal opinion, shapeshifters come as interdimensional beings because they have the ability to change themselves physically. Like, I guess
Mhm.
physically. Does it get complicated or is it just me?
It does, because you have a cryptid like the Skinwalker and it can shapeshift. And then
Right.
you have like demons and shit that can shapeshift.
Yes, there's a lot of spirit. Even descended human spirits can do that. But
Yeah.
so the definition of a shapeshifter, which we may already know, but for shits and gigs, any creature with the ability to undergo a drastic change of appearance is a shapeshifter. Although they sometimes take monstrous forms, shapeshifters are not always evil. They can be bloodthirsty, mischievous, helpful, or anything in between. So, like a lot of other things, depends on your point of view and your experience, but we're going to put them with a negative twist because most of the time, if you experience a shapeshifter, is generally a lower vibrational being, in my opinion.
Mhm. Yepper doodles. I've got a few.
And so basically, we hear stories of a man walking in a store and then he's never seen again, but then they see a random animal, or he's out on the countryside and like they go from being human footprints to paw prints, or vice versa. So, shapeshifter is a shapeshifter. If you're seeing physical prints, it's also said that ghosts can make physical, footprints. So that's what I do. I'm sorry. Ghosts. But, that kind of, was a really easy explanation for what they do. Their special abilities, though, they say that shapeshifters are as diverse in their abilities as they are in their appearance. Even shapeshifting, the trait which unifies them, is something more of a curse than an actual magical ability. In ancient mythology, shapeshifting is just one of the endless magical abilities used by godlike characters. In trickster folklore, shapeshifting is the character's only magical ability, but they combine so much cunning with their shapeshifting ability that they are still a powerful force. In romantic fairy tales, shapeshifting is a burden upon powerless characters who have usually been tricked or cursed by a more powerful magic being. Can you, Emily, tell me what one of the fairy tales was that relates to? This is a pop quiz.
Oh, the Princess and the Frog?
That's a good one. Yeah, I was thinking Sleeping Beauty, but that's close
Oh.
enough. That works too. Yeah, you got the frog prince where she has to kill, yeah, I get it. Yeah, yeah. I just thought I
Oh,
was
because the evil queen lady turns into a dragon.
look,
Or the witch lady turns into a dragon for Sleeping Beauty.
yeah, that's true. There's several references in fairy tales, matter of fact, but the one that just come to my mind is the sleepy, not Sleeping Beauty, but Beauty and the Beast. For whatever reason, I was thinking about how the witch turned him into the beast because his attitude. He had an attitude
Shrek.
problem. Yep, Shrek.
Shrek.
There's a lot of fairy tales that have to do with shape shifting, which is when you think about it in that form, it's like, damn, Disney, no wonder we're all into the paranormal. Y'all done fucked us up.
Mm.
But so there's different cultures. It's another like worldwide event that have reports of shape shifting beings. We have Eastern folklore, Greek and Roman mythology, and then you also have Norse mythology, Celtic folklore, and modern fiction, and then Native American folklore. So, real briefly, I want to discuss a little bit about Native American folklore, and it kind of ties back into some of the stuff we were talking about. The Navajo people and many surrounding tribes have a tradition about skinwalkers, a group of witches who are able to change into coyotes, wolves, fox, owls, and crows. While the skinwalkers certainly aren't friendly to humans, they aren't particularly dangerous either. They enjoy scaring people, but they have never caused anyone physical harm. So, I mean, I've personally experienced an entity that has shape shifted. Um, I've had things transform kind of in front of me, mostly though in just my mind's eye or dreams, where they kind of like shapeshift into something else. Like maybe they come as especially really evil, what we would consider possible demonic entities, shapeshift from being a child to like a
Mhm.
monster, for example. So, um, it naturally, shape shifting entities, maybe Native American cultures, like say trickster prank type energy. I can see that, especially for human spirits, maybe even earthbound spirits. Some earthbound spirits have more power than others, but that's pretty much what I have personally to say about shape shifting. You have anything you want to add or any experiences?
Yeah, so I've had during my really bad haunting, I've had demonic entities pretend they're other people to try to get me to do certain things. And a lot of the times there's just one little bit of detail that's off and I was able to catch it. But like I know devils and demons are notorious for doing that to trick somebody into doing a behavior that they otherwise wouldn't do.
Yes, or
Um
gain a trust, basically.
yeah. And then like demonic entities, I've had them turn into children to try to, trick me and I'm like, "Ha ha ha, I know you're a liar." And yeah, and I've had entities try to turn into people that I personally know, like my boyfriend and or friends. And like the one time they tried to, I guess they hugged me, but I know like my boyfriend has a tattoo on his shoulder and I felt like I could feel it and I'm like, I don't feel his tattoo. And I looked, the tattoo wasn't there and I was like, "Ha, you're not him. Nice try."
Right. And did something, what happened after that?
Um, the
You're
whole illusion disappeared and he disappeared because I was like, "Bye, Felicia."
right. Well, I can
I
relate.
wasn't playing games. Was
Right,
not
right.
playing games.
Well, I can relate to that in a dream. I had a dream that my son, he looked a little bit older in this dream, but something was off about his face. And then he smiled at me and he had these real fucked up teeth. Like, and I mean, I'm not trying to make fun of people that have any dental issues. Like, I understand if you do, so please don't take it that way. You know, healthcare is crazy and not everybody is fortunate enough to have that. But so don't take it that way. But I mean, like they were like demonic looking or evil looking, and
Mhm.
it just smiled at me, a real creepy smile, and I realized, like, I had already learned the fact that, certain entities can pose as something else, and we're taught to look for that in our dreams and experiences, astral experiences, or even physical, like eyeball experiences. But the next day after that quote unquote dream, my son was running with the dog in the hallway, and where our steps are, there's no like gate or nothing. It's just hallway and then step straight down. And he was running with the dog, and he just all of a sudden, like, he said he felt like he got pushed, almost like Onyx jumped up on him, but he didn't feel nobody touch his back. And he literally fell on the crown molding on the floor corner and literally poked a hole straight through his kneecap. We had to go take him and have it cleaned out and have stitches put in. And he's bleeding. I mean, it was a hole. You could see his kneecap. And that's when I was like, and this was when I kind of was starting in the middle, like not in the middle, but at the beginning of me trying to fight back. Like, they try to mess with you and your family when you start to try to push out negative energy and or entities from your life that you have picked up along the way. So that would be my example I'd like to share for shape shifting.
Mhm. And doesn't it say something like in the Bible where it says like demons or things of darkness will try to appear as something light?
Yeah, they try to appear in the Bible. I can't quote it exactly, but even the devil will appear as an angel of light.
Mhm.
So, depending on, your personal perspective or beliefs or whatnot. And I mean, I can see the validation and I can validate that. They
Mhm.
can
Me too.
appear to be something great, even like experiences, and that rings true for earthly experiences if you want to go that route. And it's really good to be vigilant in your dreams. And this is just from personal experience. I'm sure Emily can agree. Be vigilant about the dreams you're having. And really, if you're consciously aware and you're having a vivid dream or an astral realm experience, pay attention to the things that look familiar or look friendly, because they can go south real quick.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, see, that's why I always say write that shit down because you might go back and read it after like a fresh mind and you'd be like, wait a second, that actually wasn't right. That doesn't feel right.
Right, and then having an experience like when from what I just shared, basically, like,
Yeah.
having that appear in a dream and like, "Oh, that's really creepy," and then having that happen. I mean, can coincidences happen? To a degree, but then to a degree, I don't believe in coincidence. So, I believe there is a, reaction, or I believe cause and effect and all that kinda stuff, so
The next topic we're going to be discussing is earthbound spirits. So, Chastity, do you know how earthbound spirits are created? Or I should say, how do you believe they are created?
Well, so for me, earthbound spirits can be created and or accumulated, maybe that's the word, in a certain particular ways and for different reasons. And those reasons are not just limited to what I'm going to explain, so bear that in mind. But it has been said that earthbound spirits are created when a person passes away, of course, because well, that's one way. Person passes away and does not transition to the light. So think about what is it called? The Insidious movies, where they go to the neither, the
Yeah,
further, or something like that. It's the
yeah. The
fur.
further.
Yeah. So think of like the dark world, and then like everything's like a little different. Maybe, if you have a pile of clothes in your bedroom, that pile of clothes may not be there. It may just be the furniture. So like bare like outlines of rooms is how I've personally seen it. And these spirits are waiting for somebody. They are, wanting to, they're confused through traumatic events. They don't realize they've passed away, or they are another reason is they fear judgment due
Mhm.
to certain religious aspects.
That's a big
So,
one.
yeah, so there's different reasons why a spirit would be earthbound. And I mean, mostly like the actual person's consciousness still here. I've had experiences where I've felt like I've entered the spirit world and it literally feels like without a body, and it feels like a ball of you feel kind of like circular, and it's your consciousness, but
Mhm.
as that circle kind of starts to dissipate out, think of like light orbs, okay? Like how we see light orbs, I think that your consciousness, is an embodiment of like something and not necessarily physical, and then it radiates out a little ways, and like specks of your thoughts are surrounding this circle of consciousness that is your spirit. That's how I visually saw spirit, and that's how I validated for myself. It might not fit everybody else's description, spirit orbs, but it is said as you get used to being in this environment, you start to learn new ways and to gain energy to, make things happen, become an apparition, and all of a such. Now, this can happen in a multitude of other ways, but since we're just talking about earthbound spirits, those are kind of the main reasons that they would be one. And the difference between a spirit and a ghost, I do believe that certain times can be captured within the matrix that we referred to, between dimensions, and like that is captured in between the fold of the particles, and at the very least fifth dimension. So like if you come down, let's say you lived in a house for 20 years, and for that 20 years you worked every morning, you got up at 5 a.m., you made you a cup of coffee, you scrambled you some eggs and bacon, you made a bacon and egg, you got ready and you went. Well, that would describe some type of residual hauntings too. So it some people have different ideas, like that would be residual, but the even the sounds could be residual. But is there a potential possibility, Emily? Do you think that there could be a spirit associated with like at 5 a.m. in the morning you smell coffee brewing in your house, but nobody's brewing coffee? Do you think there could be a spirit attached to that?
I think it can go both ways because I think, like in this case, it could be a residual energy impression. And so that kind of just keeps looping and looping and looping. But I also think that you can have a spirit that was so set in their ways that does have a full consciousness and knows what it's doing, but it doesn't like to, or it doesn't like change, and it likes to keep up with its pattern and will just keep doing the thing because that's what it liked to do.
Right. And I can agree with that. I think it's not just set in one way or the other. I think it's malleable. So, since we're talking about the darker side of things based on perception and dualism, just smelling coffee in your house doesn't fit this bill. So it really gets pretty complex and in depth when you start talking about human spirits. And remember, just a few minutes ago, I was explaining how like you start out as a spirit, as like you have your body, 1 minute, the next minute you don't. I think that's a stage of evolution, possibly too. Maybe eventually you learn that you can form a shape of a body, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. I don't know, but basically, they human spirits can start to figure out things, and not only can they start to figure out things, if you have your consciousness and let's say you're angry, you're a very angry person, well, that is representative in the physical and the spirit when you're alive. So if you're a certain way when you're alive, when you pass away and realize that you no longer need a physical form and you can get away with a lot more stuff, this is what starts to go into what we refer to as descended human spirits. And they can cause problems around your house. They can, depending on how much power they are able to gain from fear, just like other entities and beings, spirits, which whatever, but they can start doing really malevolent things based on, you know, what they want to do. Like if you had somebody that was a murderer in life, well, then they might do things at night, like sit on your chest and try to suck the energy out of you and kill you, make you very ill and sick. Um,
Mhm.
some of these theories I have adopted from Amy Allen because I've actually had things happen similar to that and then like see them as she has described them. Like she was like the OG to me personally. I'm pretty sure there's plenty of people before her that aren't as well known, but for me, she was like the OG, paranormal psychic medium.
Mhm.
And I did take some of that from her experiences, some of the inspiration, and then translated it and validated into my experiences. And I believe what she says, like she is legit. So,
Mhm.
although like that was the start of my journey with learning about descended human spirits, I have actually encountered some myself. They will come to me in my mind's eye and they will almost like they want to communicate with me. I have watched them transform from like a normal human face in the dark. So that tells me they're earthbound for me, for my psychic abilities. I know a spirit's earthbound based on the setting it comes in, and it hasn't ascended because it's not coming from the light in my visions, it's coming from the dark. And it'll be like an old man or something, like just their head. It'll pop up, and I'll because they telepathically communicate when you have psychic abilities. There's no words necessary because they don't have a voice box anymore unless you have something that like paranormal investigators use. You don't need that when you have true psychic abilities. That's how you connect with past relatives. It's just different. Well, when I'm like, I'm trying to go to sleep, please leave me alone. I don't want to communicate right now, and push them out, they may transform into something nastier. And depending on the strength, normally they'll go away, but then you might have the earthbound spirit that's attached to the area. And this is how you get hauntings and all that kind of stuff that goes along with it, and things start moving, or even poltergeist activity can still be an earthbound human spirit. It doesn't just because stuff's flying around your house doesn't mean it's poltergeist activity. So
Mhm. I would say for me, I've realized that a lot of the descended ones, like you said, they take on the major attributes that a person has in their life. So the ones that are the most or the strongest is what they'll carry with them into the astral realm or wherever they go, right? So I mean, moving here, I've encountered a lot more earthbound spirits than I have had ever in my entire life. But I've had encountered a lot of negative ones, especially in the area that I live in. And I think I've talked about it on one of these episodes, but I've literally had an experience where I was in my room, wasn't even asleep. I was getting into bed and I roll over and it felt like someone tackled me on the bed. And I
yeah,
saw it was an earthbound spirit. It was a big guy and he just was angry and I was like, "Dude, why are you tackling me? I'm just
right.
trying to go to bed. I'm just here minding my own business."
Right, and it's
Mhm.
it's fair to say in your area that there has been a lot of history made and a lot of battles have been fought, and there's a lot of blood been shed in and around your area. Therefore, there could be lost souls or earthbound spirits that, sometimes they get caught in a loop too. And
Mhm.
it is fair to say here, before I forget, that there are certain places that end up sucking in human spirits, whether it's a portal vortex area or it's a darker entity that is collecting them like dolls and using their light, the energy that they have, because your soul is made of energy. And this is my personal theory: a darker malevolent entity that has more power, and let's say you pass in a certain place or around the place and you pass there, especially like it creeps me out with nursing homes and stuff like that too, because sometimes I feel like dark energy spots in there. And if you're not very well in your personal faiths or beliefs or point of views, and let's say you pass or you're weaker willed, because it's a lot to do with your will, you can actually be entrapped by a darker or malevolent spirit in a certain area and like have your life force sucked. I actually saw that happen one time with a spirit. I won't get into that now, but it's going to be pretty good story when I do. We'll just say it was somebody that was charged with murder.
You
Um,
know, when we were going over the Charlie Lawson thing, that's what I saw with this family. It looked like a dark entity had them all in chains
Yep.
and was holding on to them, and that's why they're stuck there.
Right, and then you could say too, like that, and yes, we did cover that in Ghost to Christmas Past. Really, really cool. Actually, I really enjoyed making that. So if y'all haven't
Mhm.
checked that out, definitely go check it out. It's episode, I think, 7 or 5. I can't keep up anymore.
I don't even know.
Yeah, we released it on Christmas Day, so you can look for December 25th. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's important to say that, these also could be just a fraction of that spirit.
Mhm.
Because I personally believe that some people do not believe. I personally believe that our higher selves are still kind of somewhere else. That they say you have your higher self, your higher thought forms. I don't know how else to articulate or explain that currently, but I think a part of themselves in that experience could be stuck there. That could be residual and or a part of their actual soul. So even if
Hello?
in like people that make deals with certain particular things, I believe this can happen to as well.
Yeah, so in my area, I'm seeing a lot more earthbound spirits and especially like people that were into drugs. And
Uh-huh.
I've seen some like in the park shooting up, and these are just spirits.
It's so sad.
I know, it's so fucked. And um on the street corners where I walk my dog, I've seen one or two also look like they were doing drugs. Some
Yeah.
come in my house and just kind of pass through. And then today during my nap, I had a full-on experience with this female spirit, and I don't know if she was like a social worker or something, but she was showing me like this case she had with these children that went through abuse, and um the one kid ended up becoming either a sociopath or a psychopath and started killing animals, which, if you guys listen to true crime podcasts, you know that some serial killers, start with abuse in their past. So this little girl was she became pretty much a sociopath and had the signs of a potential serial killer. But so right when I woke up, cuz this is where I woke up and I was fully like conscious and aware, um the spirit said to me, and now I'm looking for it in my notes. Oh, here we go. She said, "I had to look at the damage to get this mentality." Like I heard that clairaudiently.
When you
I
said
heard her
damage on
voice.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but when you said damage on my end, it
Mm,
cut. And I mean, I don't know if that was like a legitimate internet glitch because we have not had any of those where we're in two
mhm.
separate locations, but I just think it's interesting to point out anyways.
Yeah. So she said loud and clear, "I had to look at the damage to get this mentality." And by that, it felt like the mentality she's talking about was to get shit done. Like when you see something awful, you got to rescue and do what you need to do to save other
Or
people.
yeah, they look at it that way to be able to actually they feel like they're doing a service.
Like the social worker is saying like I had to look at the damage to get this mentality of I had to get these children out or, it would be bad.
I got you.
Yeah, because it sounded like an older woman, like 40 some years old.
Right. I'm like close to 40, Emily thinks. No, I'm kidding. Like, yeah. That's okay though. Anyways.
Well, descended earthbound spirits, like, I think when it comes to the malevolency, there's so much that plays into it because you have to figure out, like, why did they become earthbound in the first place? Was it something traumatic? Or are they getting revenge? And that all has to play a part in that. And sometimes I feel like too, like if they were somebody that was into witchcraft on the negative spectrum of witchcraft and did bad things, maybe they made contracts with negative entities that also furthered their development into becoming malevolent.
That's true. That is true. And different people that made different contracts for whatever reason that may be, I have found, they end up basically having their own reality in space. And it's not necessarily that they have a bad time when
Hmm.
they make these contracts, when they pass on. They may have the particular space or realm that they're in, and they continue to do the bad work here on earth, which translates from spirit to physical, which I think
Hmm.
we see quite often. It's a good point.
So yeah, so when you have serial killers that, you know, even if they are caught and they're put in prison and they don't fix themselves, they could end up being malevolent earthbound spirits and become descended and demonized.
Right, and I'm gonna retract my statement for being done since you said that, because it is said that when somebody that has that kind of energy, the serial killer mentality, or people that are, like, murdering people not by accident or, like, a one-off type thing, like, people that have a true passion for doing this to other human beings and, like, animals and just beings in general, um, they say that it leads an energetic imprint and stain and a piece of that malevolent part of their self. So this goes back to, now I heard this from somewhere, but it makes sense though, going back into them leaving pieces and parts of their soul within that area, which is still energy, which can also relate back to negative, stronger malevolent forces, rounding it all up and using it. And there's several places that I feel can actually fit that bill that I would like to get into at a later point, like places in the United States.
Hmm. With that being said, because I mentioned the whole witchcraft thing, so the next topic we're going to be moving into is energetic actions contributing to malevolent effects and encounters.
Yes, and it's not just about what other people do to other people. I
Hmm.
also kind of put in the category of like vortexes and portals, which are also done by people, but sometimes they can open up by natural earth energy. So I just want to make that statement really quick before we kind of have a quick conversation about this.
And I
So,
want to add that it's not always witchcraft because you can have natural, like you said, energies, but even if it's not earth energy, it could still be like thought forms and or just a concentration of energy. So it's
yeah,
not
yeah,
always
exactly.
witchcraft.
Yeah, it could be, like wars
Hmm.
and stuff too that contribute to, actions that cause malevolence in a particular area based on, spiritual, like, residue, I guess
Hmm.
you could say. Some type of spiritual residue, whether that's from human or not. So I figured it would just be kind of cool to talk about that for a second. If you want to go with darker magical practices and go into, like, I believe it's called baneful magic, and there's a reason that people do that, and that is, I'm understanding of that concept. But there are times that people are just evil and malevolent and nasty, and they want to do things to, hurt other people. Um, if something's justified and you're justifying it and, doing something based on something done to you, some people believe in living that way. That's a certain type of perspective. But I think it kind of turns the table when you're messing with innocent people, like, for example, baby sacrifice. I don't think that's very appropriate. Is, it might have a place in some people's life, but I definitely do not like people that hurt children or old people. So I'm
Hmm.
just going to say that. I think a lot of people would agree with me. I'd say 99% of the people, at least 98% of the people in the world would agree with that statement. But there are certain things that people can do to hurt others that cause malevolent things. Now, it's an energy that is, so there's sources of energy that are used by an individual that can accumulate and collect, certain bits and direct it. and force it into other people's lives, which for somebody, a lot of times it'll work. And I think it has something to do with like your own ability to sense if something is going on, if somebody has done something in a nasty or negative way. I think it has a lot to do with your ability to sense the energy around you and like notice, like, hey, something's off. You can just have streaks of bad luck, but if you pissed off somebody that has the potential ability to enact these energies and make it happen, because certain people are stronger than others, just, magic is very real. It took me like we were growing up with the thought that magic, oh, it's a fairy tale. No, 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 no. It is very real. And I've said this before. I'm a firm believer in magic. I believe that people have the ability to sway. They can sway people's thoughts with just words, or it can go as deep as like making actual potions and spells to hurt people for no good reason. Now, I don't think that a lot of people do that. I'm not saying that it's just worth mentioning. It's like when you get, curses or hexes, and there are laws and stuff regarding these curses and hexes and certain beliefs and practices that state that it can't be done unless this is done. And then you have the ability to like summon certain things to do certain things for you. And I believe also too, when people create certain types of magic and witchcraft and stuff, they can actually develop um, thought forms, like Emily was saying, and create a whole nother entity or being that actually attaches, and they can send them, to people to attach to them and wreak havoc on their lives. So, we're not trying to stir the pot, pun, I guess, pun intended. I'm not trying to, because, I work with herbs and stuff myself occasionally. But I like to make candles and herbs and with herbs and
Mhm.
stuff and all that.
Would you
So,
say, okay, so but some of these entities that have been conjured, would you say that after the whole thing's done, that some of them linger and continue to do negative things?
yeah, depending, I mean, here's the thing is like, just because you get an entity away from you, if it's affecting you, that doesn't mean it has to leave the whole entire area.
Mhm.
So as you work to get things pushed away out of your energy field, and I think we've actually just discussed this very, very recently in the last episode or right before, it gets further and further back out of your energetic field to where it won't bother you anymore, and it will stay possibly away just from your energetic field. And that's when you have to do your home and property too. So just because you're getting it away from yourself doesn't mean that it's going away from the property. And then when you leave, like it is said also too, really malevolent energies can actually mess with an entire area. We cover that again in a Christmas the
Mhm.
Christmas episode. But yeah, so it can get pretty deep when it comes to that. Also, certain actions, malevolent or not, either benevolent or benevolent or malevolent. Say that like 5 times, fast. They can open up areas of energy.
Mhm.
So I think vortexes are more or less, for the most part, earth created, but they can be, I think, human created, maybe even possibly by animals, a certain energy of an area. I've been to a lot of places, and every area has a different set of energy. You think about the Bermuda Triangle. Well, that's probably a natural thing. I do believe in the weird stuff. Some of the weird stories, I can see the validness of them. But as far as like portals, you definitely can open up portals when you do certain things, whether you know what you're doing or not. Because, I think certain people can will and control malevolent spirits if they're very well practiced and spiritually rounded. I believe that. I do. But I think there's a lot of people that practice things they do not understand. And, until you're ready to really do something like that, and with our human consciousness and the way that we actually learn and develop, we think we're ready for things. And then when we actually get into those actions, we're like, oh, fuck.
Mhm.
So I think people make those mistakes sometimes. And then it might not even be like an ill will thing you're doing, and it still will produce energetic action with malevolent consequences to others, you and others around you. So,
Would you agree that maybe dark magic or malevolent magic would be magic that is considered harmful and or takes away the free will of another?
absolutely, it can.
So would you also agree that love magic or love spells is considered dark magic? Because I do.
Yeah, I would believe I believe that it takes away people's free will. It take well, and I mean, there's a fine line we walk, when you talk about this because, you can push certain energies and like keep people away, but how is that love spell actually working on a spiritual and energetic level?
Mhm.
I personally believe in if you're gonna any type of candle work or anything that I've ever done has not been for a love spell, it's been for self love. And I don't think that there
They're
is
not the
anything
same.
wrong with wanting more self love. But when you take your energetic actions and you push them out towards other people, it can have negative effects. And I mean, you see this in movies. I mean, it's not something that's taboo. They talk about this. Like, what is it? Love potion number 9? Is it something where it kind of backfires or whatever? If I remember correctly, I might be way off, but that's what I'm associating it with.
Mhm.
They can, cause for the people involved, it can cause negative effects on their life.
Mhm.
So, but some people don't feel that way, and I mean that's fine. But I personally like to stay on the side of like, I don't want to do any ill will to anybody the best I can. I'm still human,
Mhm.
I'm not perfect by any means. Like I get resentful feelings. I get, just because we tend to lean towards, more benevolent, neutral, malevolent work does not mean that we never vibrate lower, even in spiritual work. We don't shit golden goose eggs, So I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like everybody, vibrates between both. There's some people that choose to be neutral, and that's a whole nother aspect to this whole series that we're hoping to cover sometime very soon. Stay tuned.
Mhm.
See if this everything works out well. And yeah, I mean, it's just something to mention. It's very important to know these things because in today's age, you have a lot of what people refer to as baby witches, I believe,
Mhm.
and they may get into things that they don't quite understand.
Yeah, like
So,
I honestly, so for me, so if you're doing a love spell, but it's to help or raise a vibration, right? So providing somebody with good energy and raising them up instead of trying to take away their free will, to me that's different because you're not doing anything negative. But if you're trying to get so and so to fall in love with you, that's taking away their free will, and I'm sorry, I cannot.
right, but the one thing important to mention about what you said, just a couple words to add to that is it's up to the choice of the person.
Mhm.
If you're going to do something like that, it's nice and courteous to let somebody know, unless you're is somebody that you talk to on a daily basis and you have a love connection already, whether that's friendship or relationship, and you want to just send out some positive vibes, then that might be okay. But if you're talking about a guy that you met at a bar 3 months back and you just really digged him and you really into him, or girl or whatever, then and you start doing stuff like that, people you don't know without their consent, I mean, that's where some people start having issues with it. So
Mhm.
it's just, I think, an important point and whatnot. I mean, I don't really have anything at the moment that I could elaborate as an experience myself that I would like to share, but I think that sums it up for me.
I'm a vortex.
Right, right, yeah. I've talked about that personally myself, so I don't know if you want to add anything about portals or vortexes.
When it comes to portals and vortexes, well, they say mirrors can be portals, and then if you have multiple mirrors, it could become a vortex.
That's a good point. I mean, and people don't are not aware, and it's not to say that the problem with like portals and mirrors and stuff is unless you have specified energy and you have that knowledge and that control over, the energy sources around you, you can't be messing with mirrors. And people don't even know sometimes like having mirrors across from each other cause things to come through, and sometimes you just don't have control. So that is another way that an energetic action is putting up the mirrors across from each other just because it looks cool, and then you're actually creating one of those mirrors could be haunted, and then they
Mhm.
spirits have the ability, some of them have the ability to make portals. People like Emily have the ability certain places when she opens up to create a vortex or portal type energy. It's my personal belief. We've talked about that.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's a valid point. Some people just don't know, which can turn into malevolent interactions.
And going into your bathroom and saying Bloody Mary 3 times can create a portal and a problem.
You're yeah, well, yeah, you're chanting on something that already has an existence based on thought forms at that point.
Mhm.
So it's already an entity that could be created by humans and, human thought forms like we were talking about. I know this kind of gets out there. It ties all back into like, duality and dimensions and frequency and stuff. Like these are these interwebs and in betweens. But when you go and do something like that, that is a ritualistic behavior. We do rituals with a lot of things and people don't even realize it, and they just demonize the word ritual, but you do rituals in a church setting.
You do
So people,
rituals when you get up in the morning,
right.
when you shit, shower, and shave.
Exactly. And like when you're adding something like Bloody Mary to the list, like, yeah, there's people that probably have seen stuff, especially if what they say, the veil is thinner, or if there is some type of vortex of energy, like the 37th parallel, there's something real strange. I'm sure there's some mathematical equation somebody really smart could figure out and find out why the energy is so high. 37th parallel, they probably already have. Now I got something to Google
I
though.
got something to
That
say. Yeah, you're gonna smack me when I say this. You're gonna do an astral smackdown. I know it. Okay, when I was a kid in my parents' house, I was one of those kids that was like, I ain't afraid of nothing, and I did do Bloody Mary in my house, which is bad because I can create portals, and I didn't know at the time.
did that happen before you started experiencing hauntings or after?
Like, I was like, I would think it's around the same time.
That's interesting correlations here. We're building stories on our lives here. I think, with this podcast, we're actually learning a lot about ourselves too. I know that might sound silly, but I hope that throughout these episodes, like you see our growth, and we hope that you guys are growing in your own very special way too.
And there was a
So
period of time when I was scared to go in that bathroom.
I would be too. I mean, I'm pretty sure we did it as well, but I
But
never,
okay,
never really.
I don't know if this just is movies and then getting it into your mind as a child, but like the whole if you have a bathtub with the shower curtain and then your toilet's right next to it, and then you have to like whip open the shower curtain before you go to the bathroom because you're afraid you're gonna get attacked. Well, that was what I was
Yeah.
feeling.
The paranoia,
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, there it's normal to have those feelings, and sometimes they happen and it's nothing, but for people, it doesn't matter if you have psychic abilities or not, people can feel the differentiation in
Mhm.
energy. So, you can get a feeling
But then
coming
after a
about.
while, the bathroom was fine, and I never had any feelings of bad things happening in there. It was always more
Right,
so in the basement, my brother's room, which then turned to my room, and then my parents' room, which those are all
right.
3 places that have portals.
So I would just like to kind of sum up this information and some things that I personally took away from it. Ultimately, throughout the presentation, we've really discussed what, dark spirits or dark entities could be. And there are a few things that I would like to mention before the end of the dark spirits part of this series. First, I would like to say that spirit really pushed the quantum physics side of existence of these entities and beings through my research and my channeling. They kept just saying, like, it has to do with quantum, mechanics. And I was like, okay, because I mean, I don't know nothing really about it, only what I've read. And even science doesn't understand it. But science has started to try to understand quantum mechanics on a very, small level, and they continue to search for answers. But one interesting thing is they have been able to prove that mass itself is, doesn't exist as mass in quantum, mechanics. It exists as energy, in which, we already know and we feel, but they have actually proved that. And it supports the views of those that believe in some sort of spirituality point of view as well. So when you add consciousness into the mix, it can develop some very interesting theories in regards to quantum mechanics and how it works. And overall, I just feel that Spirit was trying to validate the correlation of quantum mechanics and the spiritual world. And science is definitely on the edge of many great discoveries, I personally feel. Over time, they will prove that we exist and experience things from other realms and places, just like Emily and I and other psychics and mediums and empaths and however how all the people that can sense energy now. Over time, it won't be on the fringe of the scientific community. And that's what Spirit told me. Another thing that really was brought to my attention during our research was the whole concept of dualism and how as humans we really are raised to like live that dualistic experience. And it led me to like thinking, well, is dualism just naturally a part of being human? A lot of people in the spiritual community say, it's best to take a new neutralistic approach, and there's definitely they have their reasons. But we are taught the difference between good, bad, and that is our perception. That's how we perceive things, and it plays a role in our human experience as physical beings. It's very much a part of our everyday lives, which is particularly led by the very basis of cause and effect. So, it's good if you don't do these things, because the effect would be, you may get hurt really, really bad. And that creates, a whole good, bad perspective, something as simply as that, but it gets a lot more in depth. So maybe this is why some people experience darkness differently than others. And it is worthy to mention that the powers that be in our physical world basically play a role in this concept, just like the ones in the spiritual. They try and sometimes achieve the control of an entire country's thought process. And it really starts at the very basis of perception. And generally, it's fear based. So you see propaganda, and things on TV, and they say they shift literally the consciousness to get a desired outcome of people's actions. But this happens on a physical and spiritual level, which is all based on dualism and good and evil. It's like we're always trying to overcome something, and especially that rings true a lot here in the USA where we live. I don't know if that makes sense to you, Em, but it definitely, I see that in the news, and it really brings the whole point around dualism.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, and they understand this very well. They understand the way that all this works very well. I say they, I mean like people in power.
Mhm. Because it's easier to
And
split people and divide and conquer.
right. And they actually, they're, yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what they try to do and to receive a desired outcome. And they play on this whole dualism point of view that most people carry. And it's been going on for millennia. So it has been, it leads me to the question, since our perception is said to shape our reality, then are we creating our own monsters to a degree and internal battles based on how we are raised? So is this fear based mindset causing some people to experience negative things?
Yeah, so I want to say something really fast. So
Sure.
the thing is, I feel like too they create problems on purpose because they're
Hmm.
trying to manipulate, obviously, but it's like they want to create the big bad because they need a hero. And who better to be the hero? Themselves.
Right. And this, this can tie into the spiritual world as well. I truly feel that. I feel that this can tie into how we like experience things and how we learn. And I believe, that to a degree, some people do create their own monsters and definitely internal battles. I mean, that's obvious. And it's a very relevant point. But here, though, it's not always the case. Some people still have very bad experiences that they never asked to be a part of. And as I said, it is reflective in the physical and the spiritual world. Sometimes you're just at the wrong place at the wrong time. You might see or experience things.
Yeah. And I think too, like depending on the influencer, especially if they're like a spiritual influencer, sometimes some of them, keyword is some of them, I feel like create problems out of things that like that doesn't exist because it's kind of like I don't know, whether it's their belief or not, it's like they create this problem which then makes it the problem of other people.
Absolutely. And if you are constantly pushing negative, negative, negative with no positive, then the people that follow you are going to gain that perspective because there's a lot of people in comparison to the people that are kind of in this research, in this field, in this industry to not. That's a very large number that are not. But there is a very large influx of people wanting to learn because they're starting to experience the spiritual side of life for the first time. And that is reflective into our collective consciousness and our community. I mean, it's obvious. It's such a big, big industry, $1 billion industry that there's money to be made. And that's the bad thing is you get some people that are just in it for the money. And I'm not grouping one person in all this by any means. I'm just saying collectively, there is a lot of things that could be said about that, but they play on the dualistic nature of things, even when it's not just their perception. Some people are just in it for the money, unfortunately. And, it's our experiences and the way we interpret them. They are very much based on our perception and it can dictate the way we see things. So, like we were saying, this goes for the people that see the spiritual world and not. So, it's important not to put yourself in a box. I have learned this over time. If you do so, you will only gain the understanding that fits inside of your box.
Yeah.
So, labels and terms and this, that, and the other, you have to be open to understanding how this spiritual energy interacts with you. Like, you or let's say you start getting a pain. I was talking to somebody about this recently. Say you get a pain in your head and you think you're being attacked by something, but it's not. It's maybe because you can't perceive it because you haven't experienced anything outside of that. But in all actuality, it could be like a human spirit trying to say, "Hey, this is how I passed away." And that might be the only way you can feel it because you perceive it through your clairsentience instead of being, claircognizant, for example. So that does play a big role in what you've experienced and how you continue to experience things. So it's important to continually evolve that perception. Trust me, if you don't put yourself in a box and you try to do that with any of this positive or negative or neutral, you will constantly gain understanding from spirit.
Yep, and I learned a big, big lesson on that because, I followed one person and, I trusted them and it's not basically their fault or anything. It's just that I followed everything they said, which blocked out the other stuff that I could have been learning. And then once I shut them off, I started learning a whole bunch of things. And I think I've grown significantly by doing that.
Yeah, and you have to allow yourself to step outside of your comfort zone to grow too. It's not every psychic will see the same thing the same way. And if they're not open to the darker side, for example, they may not be able to discern the difference or the entity that you see because we all see things differently.
Hmm.
And, that goes for like what you were just saying. And what even I said earlier in the episode about like she wasn't sure if that shadow that she was seeing was real. The other guy, on the other hand, said he sees it and he thinks it's real. I've seen it. Multiple people have seen it, but that's just her perception because M tends to take a neutralistic perception. And then I'm not trying to make an example of her. I'm just using her as an example, and that's okay. It's okay not to see the same exact thing because as humans, we do put this black and white tape on either end, but there's so much gray area where they move and intertwine with each other. That's kind of like during this research, some people experience, for example, aliens in a good way and aliens in a bad way.
Yeah.
So,
And the whole thing, like, if you follow someone doesn't matter who, but like a spiritual teacher, and all they talk about is demons and angels and nothing in between. And you follow them, and that's probably what you're going to see. You're not going to see like the energy formations that create entities. You're not going to see like all the other spirits of other things. You're just going to miss out.
Yeah, and I mean, it takes time to evolve to see those things. So just because you're experiencing all positive things doesn't mean that's just what exists. And I think a lot of people get caught up in that in the spiritual community.
Yeah.
So it's just a valid point. And lastly, I would just like to simply say that there is a meaning to our experiences, and generally they come with a lesson or some type of wisdom. And I always say that one cannot appreciate the light or the good in life if they haven't seen or experienced darkness or the bad in life. So, my friends, please keep this in mind if you're going through a shadow part of your life, because it does get better. So, that pretty much concludes, this part of the series for me. I just wanted to kind of highlight a few things at the end and things that I was shown, and just lessons I think that are important to take from this.
What the fuck?
Right.
Did you hear that?
You thought it was your
It
dog.
was. He just got his shit scared out of him.
Really?
He just like was like,
Is he looking? Wait, stop. Is he looking down your hallway
yeah.
into the end of the
He
hallway?
is where my office door is, and he's
He's looking straight down the hallway.
huh.
Yeah, because there's energy in that point area, and I see like your living room.
Yeah.
So I see like your living room, and then I see male energy,
That
man.
doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Especially what we were talking about yesterday about my neighbor being sus.
Yeah. It's like an older man, though. I immediately got an image of like an older man in a tuxedo, like one of those spirits that, like, I was buried in this. This is why I look sharp. But at the same time, though, why would it? And that's how it initially appears. This is one of the things, guys, like if we keep this in and not tits it out, um, pretty much there's a layer like onions. So,
What?
like, I might initially see the man, but as things develop, your perception may very well change. So, guys, it's been a really wild ride. Over the last two episodes, we have discussed many different things. And we tried to keep it to the minimum, but maybe we overdid it a little. I don't know. You tell us. We did share a lot of information. If you like these kind of episodes, please let us know. Please bear in mind also that these different topics will be made into episodes later down the road. And yeah, we've got some exciting things coming up. I'll leave that one there. I've already spoke a little bit about it. One of the cool things that happened to us on the 26th of January, according to certain statistics on Google, we hit number 125 for the Apple iTunes or Apple Podcast charts, which different types of websites picked us up based on those stats. And I'm pretty sure I've looked just to make sure they're not like trying to make us feel special, that we had to have hit it. Like we've had to. We don't have the official chartster or whatever it's called, but yeah, we're really excited and honored that we at least made it there. Being a podcast that's only been around for 3 months, that means you guys like our content. And our episode 10, if you haven't seen it, please go watch Duality, Frequency, and Dimensions. That is now our almost most listened to podcast, and it's only been about a week since we dropped it, about a week and a half. Everybody seems to like it, so we hope you enjoyed these two episodes: the dark spirits, the diabolical, and the abominable, in this mini series, I guess you could call it, an exploration into the diversity of spiritual realms. In our next episode, we will be talking about the benevolent side. So we are trying to do mirroring episodes, just like we described in episode 10.
there'll probably be 2 shows as well. So we'll be getting into the benevolent side and the perceptions and beliefs that are common among the human race, and maybe even more. Who knows? Because we've covered a lot of crazy shit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's a wrap, Em.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know what's great about being a psychic medium? You
What's
never
that?
run out of content.
Right, right. I mean, there's times things are
Slow,
kind of
but
chill. Yeah, but most of the time something's always going on, and we've been blessed to be surrounded by a bunch of awesome people, and those awesome people send awesome people to us that we are blessed and honored to be able to help,
hmm,
and we keep meeting more of you awesome people. At least not obviously meeting, but you know
the
what I mean.
chastity. My
Yeah.
lights just flickered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hopefully, yeah, I know. What a way to end it. It's like they've been all the
Did it
malevolentness that
again.
just us.
Flick
Yeah.
again if you're
So
here. I want to see.
you better get a video. You all you're on your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the problem
But
is
yeah.
this house is so fucked up with its wiring, it could just be that.
Yeah. I mean it's a possibility and power lines, people hitting them and stuff, but you never know. It's just a convenient time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's always something being a psychic medium. Well, I'm gonna go cleanse my house now. I'm gonna cleanse my chakras. I'm gonna. So, oh shit, tits! My phone hit the glass. Okay. Hey, if you have a haunted story you want to share, you can email us at lightsatmidnightpodcast@gmail.com. Get in touch with us there. We'd love to hear from you. We really appreciate y'all hanging around and checking it out. And yeah, thank you so much. We are super excited to bring you some super awesome content. We really appreciate you guys checking us out.
Thank you to all that took the time to listen to this week's episode. Your support means the world to us. And remember, all of us have the ability to shine brightly and shed positivity, even in the darkest of places. Stay safe, stay well, and light it up!